Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And welcome to this week's Thoughtful Thursday. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Hacking Your Leadership and leave us a review on iTunes. For this Thoughtful Thursday, I want to talk about making sure that as a leader, that your people are kind of cast in the right roles. And what made me think of this is I recently was working with someone who in my mind, was just not the right fit for the organization. And they weren't a bad person. I liked them in general. They were personable. They weren't mean-spirited, but they just didn't seem like they had any interest in doing their job. And in my mind, I felt like they would rather be anywhere else but at their job. They kind of phoned it in as much as they could. The whole quiet quitting that we've been talking about recently, that a lot of people are doing. And what happened was they transferred to a different part of the organization, and it was like they were a different person altogether. And it completely floored me in terms of what they had the capability of doing. And it reminded me that, you know what? I always liked them as a person. I just felt like they weren't a right fit for the organization. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe they were just the wrong fit for the role they were doing.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And it's I think it's something that is continuing to be a much larger topic. And I think that it works. It works in theory when even if somebody's doing a job that is not the preferred job. So like I'm doing this, I really want to do that, but I'm doing this. But you still have to be good at this, right?
Sure.
Like you still have to be good at this. Like you signed up to do this. So do this well. But if you want to do that by doing this well and then, building out a network or that type of thing, then it opens up that door of an opportunity. Because I agree with you. I've seen people that, similar, did a good job. They were good at what they did. They weren't great. It wasn't like a huge thing. They were good at what they did. But then when given an opportunity to do something else, and sometimes it's actually the same job, but just a different part of the job responsibility, or, hey, you do this, but would you mind helping train new people? Or would you mind helping communicate what this is for people? Or would you mind working with some people to help sharpen their skills? All of a sudden they just unlock and they feel empowered and they show up in a very, very different way. And I think that's such an important part of where we are today and where we're going in the future of leadership.
Yeah. The idea of, if you're talking about promotions, there are people who I don't like what I'm doing right now, but if I only got promoted to do this, then I would do well. I 100% agree with you. You can't just say, oh, the reason why I'm not performing at my job is because I don't like what I'm doing. Promote me and then I'll do a good job. That's ridiculous. Where I see this as being the responsibility of leaders to make sure that people are kind of cast in the right role, so to speak, is when we're talking about parts of the organization that would not be considered a move up or an addition of responsibility or leading people, but rather the day-to-day work they're doing. Your organization does multiple things, and can you get them moved from one of those things to another one of those things because they have told you that they would rather do it, B, there's a space available, and C, it's not that they are phoning it in or not doing it to the level that the organization wants them to do. It's that it's clear that they are almost like a fish out of water. I'm reminded of the Albert Einstein quote that I'm going to butcher right now that says that everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it will think it's an idiot its entire life. And this is the exact same thing. There are people who they naturally gravitate towards certain skill sets or certain behaviors, and other people who gravitate towards other ones. And there's no hierarchy. There's no one that is better than the other. If your organization does all of these things, you need people who are good at all of these things. And if you have a person who signed up to do something because, to your point, this is what they agreed to do, I get it. There needs to be a minimum level of expectation. They can't just say, oh, well, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, so I'm going to sit and do nothing until I get moved. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying the employee is vocal about how they would rather be doing this to you as their leader, and you can see that when given the opportunity to do those things, they are shining. They're surprising you in terms of what their capabilities are, and see the things that they're doing day to day, they struggle with it, but you can tell they're doing their best even if the performance isn't where it needs to be. If those things align, you have an absolute responsibility as a leader to do everything you can to get them cast in that right role. And part of it is being aware of where employees are surprising you, where they can show you that they are not the person you thought they were, and that your kind of opinion of them is based on a limited set of data that you only have access to because you've only seen them in this one role. And so with that, what I want to ask you, Lorenzo, is have you ever been miscast in the wrong role and you had to do whatever you could to let your leadership know, you know what, I'm gonna do my best here, but I'd rather be doing this, and you found a way to make that happen or to work with your leadership in order to get into an area where you could do your best work as opposed to just kind of like struggling along. So I want to ask you that, but first I want to give it up to word from one of our sponsors. All right, Lorenzo, when have you been miscast in a role? When have you had to kind of surprise your leaders and show them, hey, look, this is what I'm capable of if you give me the opportunity to do the kind of work that I do best?
What's happened in my career is that I've held a lot of leadership roles at a lot of different levels, and I think that I've did a pretty good job in almost all of them. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot of mistakes that I made. There was a lot of times when I had to get better as a leader. I've shared those times in my career. So I never felt that I was miscast. What did happen, though, was I had leaders and mentors that saw how much I enjoyed the element of messaging, of training, of developing people, of connecting dots for people on how to show up and challenge themselves to be better, but then also feel good about the work that they do. And and that can be something that can happen every single day if you're like me and grew up, as kind of in sales, and then as a sales supervisor, sales manager, you get a lot of those opportunities to work with people directly and help to build skill. But my leaders saw that I really enjoyed the creative elements of putting together messaging and telling stories and finding ways to connect with and inspire people that was not the norm of what was necessarily happening in certain businesses or certain places. So I was taken out of the role and put into other responsibilities and things where I was able to really flex my creative muscle and also spend more time in the ideation space around how do we help our leaders become better leaders? How do we help our people feel more empowered? And so again, like, I don't necessarily chalk it up to being miscast, but I think that I was probably not able to truly fulfill my potential until I had a chance to hold on to some of those responsibilities organizationally. And that really helped me to go back into a lot of the typical day-to-day leadership job with this understanding of the importance of messaging and language and inspiration and development.
Yeah, I like that example a lot because I think in a lot of places, a leader might be listening to this right now and thinking, well, yeah, I have some people who would love to be doing different things than what they're doing, but we don't have those roles, or we don't do this enough, this thing that they want to do enough to where that's an actual position, or that's a full-time spot, or whatever that is. And so they're thinking this doesn't really apply to me. And what you're essentially saying is, yeah, it absolutely does apply, because you don't necessarily have to change a person's actual job title or what they're expected to do. You can give them more of the things that make them shine, to just make it so if they work 40 hours a week, instead of doing 1 or 2 hours of that thing they love every other week, they're doing 10 hours of it per week. You're moving more of that into them. So it's not necessarily about changing a person's job title or responsibility. It's about kind of an acknowledgement that, hey, you know what, people shine and will surprise you when they're doing different things. And the more of their work week that you can make those things a part of them, the more likely they are going to be to not only enjoy their job, but to perform well during the times when they're not doing those things, because they burn out less quickly, because they feel like, oh, okay, if I only have to do this thing that I hate, not 40 hours a week, but instead 30 hours a week or 20 hours a week, then I can hang. I can do this. I can do my best work for this part of it when I know it's not my entire existence at work. And so I love that, because again, if you're a leader, it's not just about, okay, what roles do I have? What is the company set up for me to move people around like chess pieces? I have an actual responsibility as a leader to look at the actual performance on a day-to-day basis and the tasks that need to get done and figure out ways to move tasks around, even if it doesn't mean recasting a person in an entirely different role.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And have a great day.